How do you know what you know? There's a whole field of study known as epistemology, which studies how we know what we know. It's a kind of a branch of philosophy. But I want to kind of talk a little, not so as they used to say, highbrow, kind of more uh, our day to day experience of how do we know what we know. It is fascinating to me as I grow older and I hear people talk, I hear people discuss points of view, how easily it is for us to think that we really do know something when the truth is we're often relying on other people's interpretation. I mean, you can hear this lately with there's a big mantra where people who I believe in science, I trust the science. But then when you ask a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, what specific science are you referring to? Because again, science is a process, it's not a thing. Is there a particular research study? Is there a particular, journal article? And a lot of times people really haven't looked at those. They just have trusted what someone else has told them. Someone else who says, well, the research shows, and that person may be correct, but it's real often that we kind of subjugate our own opinions to those who we deem as experts or who cite information or sound very scholarly, and they may be correct a lot of times. However, how do they know what they know? I remember reading a little book or an article by the late science fiction author Robert Anton Wilson, where he talked about what we need is a type of logic that he referred to as maybe logic. Because you may have noticed a lot of times that when we think we know something, we learn new information. It totally counteracts what we thought we knew. And then, so we arrive at a new point of view, and then we get another piece of information that totally counteracts that second, and then that third, and that fourth piece of information. So being married to a point of view oftentimes keeps us a little confined and limited. So what Wilson talks about is having this logic of maybe, never saying outright that something doesn't exist or something does exist or that point of view is correct and this point of view is wrong. Just at least, particularly in the initial stages of our exploration, go maybe. Doesn't mean that we have to fully believe in one point of view or another. Particularly if we're looking at the world from a dichotomy, as in this is right, this is wrong, we get kind of stuck in those rather rigid ways of seeing the world. So if I say Henry VIII said such and such or did such and such, I am not really giving you firsthand information. I am relying on what I'm reading. And that scholar who wrote that is relying on what they read because none of us were there when Henry VIII did anything. So if you can find multiple accounts of the same situation happening, then you can arrive at a conclusion a little easier, as in, well, multiple sources have said this, so there is a maybe that this indeed happened. At the same time, I can remember many instances where large groups of people saw certain strange phenomena out in the world and they absolutely swore it was true and it was chalked up to mass hysteria, mass hypnosis. So it's really hard to know what's true, what's not, what do we really know. I think the first step is to just saying to ourselves, well, we know so little about the world. And when someone says, how do you know that to be true? You could say, well, this is where I've read it, I've learned it. But we also need to say, okay, let's go to those primary sources. Because, for someone says this and we accept that and we accept this. The other day I had a discussion with a very educated guy who told me there's absolutely no validity to parapsychological research. They've never found anything, any, conclusive correlations. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's 40 years of peer-reviewed research on this, and if you actually look, Cordinia just wrote a large meta-analysis in American Psychologist showing, these high, correlations, and he's like, no, there's not. And I said, well, have you actually looked at the research? And this person, nice person, but didn't. Oh, and then didn't see any need to because he felt he already knew. because someone else told him. Now, this is a problem on many different levels. So, how do we know what we know? Is it because we've had that direct experience? Is it because we've read a reliable source? When we get down to it, this idea of what's real, what do we really know, goes into a lot of times two different camps. Fundamental knowledge, meaning a reality that we all can agree on, for example, gravity, because it's consistent and we all can experience the same thing. And then there's a constructive aspect of knowledge in that whatever we're experiencing goes through our five senses. And our five senses are very flawed a lot of times. And a lot of times our five senses have been conditioned due to previous experiences. So how we view things, what we pay attention to, our awareness about certain situations is really only geared toward our past experience. So we might not have the full picture even when we watch something happen in front of us. I mean, you just look at the history of eyewitness testimony in court. Now, my goal for this video isn't to tell you that you don't know anything or to make you feel like there's no fundamental truth on anything, but just maybe possibly all of us, myself included, taking a step back and going, how do I know what I know? How do I know that I really do know that? Socrates was said he felt he was the wisest man in Athens because he didn't know anything. He said, I really realize I don't know much because when it comes to that first experience, I can only know so little. So maybe next time when you're in a discussion and you hear somebody and they're giving you points of view, rather than outright dismiss them, maybe just go, maybe, Maybe even tell them, hey, thank you for sharing that point of view. It's given me something to think about. Didn't say they were right. Just saying thank you, because that information may indeed be something that's worth noting. But we'll have to get past some of our inherent biases and really truly investigate what we think we really know.